Most of my career was as a journalist, and most of that career was spent writing a column 3 times a week about people and their struggles and triumphs, ordinary people, very seldom anyone that anyone had heard of. And I also got some branding experience writing stories about products and services, or ideas for products and services, with Mickey at a place called the Eureka Ranch. I call it the Urethra Ranch, but it's okay. I mean, it was a good experience. And then if you look up my name on Amazon, there's titles of 7 or 8 books I've had published, but all nonfiction, because as a journalist, I admire you all. I've never tried fiction. I haven't said this to Mickey, but I really haven't tried it, although I'm always making things up. But it's too Herculean for me to sit down and write a book that's made up out of whole, because something bad had happened. I'd realized something about myself, something dark. I don't want that. And that's enough about me. But I respect and admire you all for taking on fiction. That's a daunting challenge, I would think.
So one of the reasons I've asked David here, first of all, I met David when I was 23 years old, so I've known him more than
3 years ago.
He was my first big crush. I was totally in love with David Wecker.
Who wouldn't be?
And he was also my first editor. So, which if you've ever worked with a journalist before, that can be a very brutal experience. And he didn't pull any punches. So it was great learning for me. I was writing marketing concepts, and it was really fascinating to work under David and really have to say what you're trying to say very succinctly. I've asked him to come here today because one of his hidden talents, because of his nonfiction writing, his human interest stories, is writing a bio. And he has pretty large companies hire him to write bios for their executives because he's really, really good at it. And I think a bio is an important part of being an author. And so we're going to talk a little bit about his background and his human interest columns, and then we're going to go into writing bios. So how did you get to be a journalist? Did you know you were going to be a journalist?
No. I won the College Poetry Award at Case Western Reserve. And I thought, well, I guess I can do this. And then my girlfriend's mother at the time was a columnist for the Dayton Daily News, very popular. Or she was kind of a legend, the Dorothy Fulltime. She was great. And she was horrified at the idea that her future possible son-in-law might become a poet, And so she steered me toward newspapers, never had any interest in that, never read newspapers because they just seemed gray to me. But got into it and started writing the kinds of stories I wanted to write, and loved it. Those were golden years. The newspaper that I ended up with went defunct, the Cincinnati Post and the Kentucky Post. Some of you in Louisville might have heard of the Kentucky Post. It was statewide in a way, the Scripps newspapers. So that's, I've just kind of stumbled through life. I'm not as intentional as maybe you all seem to be, but that's what's happened. But I've stumbled, I guess, the right way. It's all worked out somehow.
It's all worked out.
Yeah.
David used to publish, was it 3 columns a week, 3 human interest columns? And, still to this day, if you go out to dinner with David, people will stop at the table and be like, oh, I loved your column. I mean, he's very, very well known here in town. And these columns were so good because they literally, what'd you say, 550 words, 550 words on just a person and their life. And through these columns, you would learn about people you would never have interacted with. So why do you think those columns really resonated with people? They were very popular.
Well, I'm just going to guess because I don't want to, one thing about journalism, it's the most awards happy profession on the planet. He's award-winning journalist. That's every journalist who ever lived. So, seem immodest. Forgive me because I don't want that. But anyway, so I think people, for the most part, the feedback I got was that could have been my neighbor. That could have been someone I know, but then it's not someone I know, but I want to get to know them better. So I heard that a lot, and stories, of course. That's how we connect with each other. I mean, I find when I'm interviewing someone, this is a dumb example, but if they say, yeah, my wife has a Chihuahua. Oh, well, my grandma had a Chihuahua. There's always some kind of way to connect. And then you build on that, at least in the interview. But then that's what comes through. If there's genuine empathy, you have to be interested in everything. And I guess I am interested in things. I'm surprised at things I'm interested in. But yeah, enough about me. How about you guys?
These guys might not have been exposed to your columns. Do you have a particularly memorable one that you could tell us about that you?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And it'll take me a minute, so bear with me. And it's just another example of just stumbling through life. It was around the end of World War II. There was some anniversary of the 50-year anniversary of World War II. I heard from this guy on the east side of Cincinnati. This is going to probably take 3 minutes.
Okay.
But
it's worth it.
And he was in World War II. He fought in Guadalcanal, which was the scene of some of the worst, bloodiest, most awful fighting in the Pacific Theater. And he had a particular problem that he thought Dave Wecker could help him with, and it was that he had the skull of a Japanese soldier in his basement. And is this a little too much?
It's fine.
There is some. Did you hear this one? Huh?
I think I did. When you said it, I was like, I know where this is headed. Go ahead.
There was also a little jar with his large toe in it. And he said, we had this skull and we put it on a stake. I didn't ask him a lot about, well, where'd you get the skull? Because it was war. And he and his buddies probably found this body or decapitated this guy, boiled it. Anyway, they'd all had signed with a pencil their names on the skull. And he had a change of heart after 50 years. His wife said, let's see, what should I tell you next about? The next piece of the story is, they had the skull on the stake outside the tent. He got malaria. And he was just out of it. His buddies packed up his stuff in what they call a ditty bag, I guess is like a duffel. And they put the skull in there and the toe, which was in a little jar, baby food jar. And he was shipped to Hawaii, and along with his ditty bag, still out of it, got to San Diego where there's a Navy base, and was able to walk around a little bit, still in his, the gown with the back wide open. So he stuck around pretty much to his room, and realized then, opened his ditty bag, there's this skull. Oh, it's that darn skull. It's a bad penny or whatever. And so he didn't know what to do. He took it home to the west side. His wife said, yeah, put that thing, or the woman he eventually married, put that thing in the basement, will you? So he did. And there it stayed for 50 years along with the toe. Let's not forget the toe. The toes. I still have the toe, but anyway, I forgot about it. I should bury it or something.
You should bury it.
Yeah. I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere in a pie safe. Anyway.
So he reached out to you because he thought you could help him.
Yes. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. I'm going down a rabbit hole. He thought I could help him. He had this change of heart. He realized that the Japanese, he said to me, I see now that the Japanese revere their war dead as much as us. And can you help me get this back? Okay. I called every embassy, every consulate, everything I could think of. And this was before DNA testing. So they all said, thank you, but we have no way of knowing this is an actual Japanese soldier, so no thanks. So I wrote that column. And then often enough, something had happened, it would require a follow-up. So I got a call from a guy in Boone County, and he had a business in the Solomon Islands, which is where Guadalcanal is. And they were retrieving the wreckages of Japanese Zero fighter planes that had crashed in the mountains during the war. And they would bring these wreckages down, and collectors would buy them and restore them. And he said, this guy was an accountant. He later became my accountant. And he says, I'll take the skull if you like, and we'll put it in a wreckage. And there's a team of Shinto priests that comes every year from Japan to collect whatever remains have been collected the previous year. They hold a ceremony, and they burn it and take the ashes back to Japan. So that's what I did. I gave this guy the head. I forgot the skull because it was in the back of my Toyota Camry, ironically enough. And maybe it's just ironic to me, but I forgot. There was a bunch of my kids' soccer stuff, and I said, here's the skull. And it was in the same Kroger bag that Kyle had given it to me. And anyway, so I got a letter back from the guy, and he says it went just to see. He thought that it would, but there was and they took the skull up to the plane. I have no way of verifying this, except I believe the guy was telling the truth because I wanted to believe it. But that was the last I saw, hiding her hair in the skull. But one little footnote, this guy also had a business in the Solomon Islands, the Solomon Island Lottery. And the government of Australia decided to purchase the Solomon Island. You line up coconuts and you get $1 or something like that. It's really primitive. And he sold the Solomon Island lottery to the government of Australia for $8,500. That's what the contract said. The check came for $850,000, which promptly cashed and then went to Belize. There was some Kenton County where the Australian government tried to get their money back, never did. And the guy was my accountant for a number of years. He was pretty good. I'm sorry. No, that's the longest story you'll get from me.
I'll tell you.
Now you're sorry, aren't you?
No, I'm not. You can order Square Pegs, which is a collection of David's favorite columns, which are very much like this. I mean, it's just people, the craziest stories that you just.
There were a lot of crazy ones.
There were a lot of crazy ones. So David tells stories for a living. I mentioned that he gets folks that hire him to write bios. So you refer to these as personal brand stories.
Yeah, something like that. Pretty close. Yeah. Can I explain a little bit?
Yeah, please.
If you go to, these are for professionals who are all in crowded fields. So if you go to a law firm website, for example, and you look at a lawyer and you're shopping for a lawyer, you'll read that John Schmedley went to this law school. He sits on this board and that board, and he and his wife, Gladys, have 9.7 children. And the stories I write, and these are for doctors, financial advisors, a lot of attorneys, are what kind of kid John was. Who were his heroes? Did he almost die at any point? Did he ever? What does he believe in? What are the forces, the influences that led him to a career in law, medicine, whatever it would be? And you just kind of get to, did your grandmother have a Chihuahua? And you kind of go with that, and what they do for fun, just anything you could think. Now these are all, and I have to tell them they're going to be positive stories. I can't really. They're paying me some decent money to write these stories, but I have a system. It's a minute interview. They get a rewrite, and then I get paid. But I like doing them because they all say I'm boring. You won't find anything, and then you always do if you have empathy and you're interested in everything.
So what would you say makes a bad bio?
Just a person who's in a hurry to get done with the writing of it. Someone who doesn't a bio that doesn't go beneath the surface. Mm-hmm. It's just, you just go beneath the surface, and that's where the treasures are.
So treasures, you mentioned like what made somebody go into a field, if they've ever had a near-death experience. What other treasures, like if we're thinking about our own bios, what treasures should we be looking for?
Yeah, the authors, it's usually she and her husband live in a restored 1709 brick house, and they have a dog. It's mostly, I think it's more like, well, what does the person care about, and why, just for the brand, the person, what does the person care about? What does the person stand for? What would the person die for? I think when you're talking to someone or you're thinking, you have to ask obtrusive questions. I'm told I ask questions that most people won't ask, not because I'm just because I'm curious. And people are gonna, how much do you weigh? Well, you don't ask that necessarily, but particularly not my wife. But I'll never know how much unless I weigh her while she's sleeping somehow. Yeah, she's very offended when I even ask. Of course, I ask her all the time, how much do you weigh now? But I think it's going deeper than you thought you could go. If you think I could help you write your personal bios, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
I really like doing it, and
it shows.
Oh,
it does.
Thanks.
I mean, yeah, they're really compelling, memorable, moving bios.
Yeah.
And
well, that's nice. Thank you.
Very unusual.
Yeah, because and everyone is surprised. Not everyone. People are often surprised. I didn't think I was that interesting. Well, you are. You are.
Mm-hmm. Any other tips and guidelines? What questions could we ask ourselves? I know you don't want to probably give away your 90-minute interview.
No, that's fine.
But what would we ask ourselves if we had to take ourselves through that?
A lot of it is being alert to what you might wonder about a person because of an answer that they just gave about something. Then I would say go down rabbit holes, and don't be afraid to get lost for a while, because you can always bring it back. In terms of specific questions, it's a simple question, but what do you do for fun? And that leads all kinds of places. Well, where have you been to practice this fun, this sick, twisted, demented thing you do? And you don't use pejorative language, of course, but I think it's just really kind of leaning forward into the person and where they're coming from and what they're thinking, trying to do that and letting them see that you want to know about them, and you're not going to see what I'm doing this for professional people. Again, it's not, I always tell them, this isn't Watergate, to use a really dated reference, but this is not an expose, unless, and I always do ask, well, tell me, what's your deepest, darkest secret? And very seldom will somebody, some have though. It's surprise. But in terms of like raking through the embers of your own past and determining what stands out, I guess I'm looking for mountaintop moments, and everybody's had those. Mm-hmm. Tell me about 3 mountaintop moments, or tell me about one. Well, then tell me about another, and that those mountaintop moments give you a good look at what people care about. I hope I don't sound like a pompous ass here. Like, I know what I'm talking about, but
what is a mountaintop moment? Like a personal high? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the birth of a child, maybe, or hearing a doctor saying, "Yeah, the breast cancer is all cleaned up." You're fine. Have a life.
Yeah.
And how did that change you? What were things that changed you, that set you on the course that you're on? I'm looking at trees here. I'm just trying to think.
Yeah, no, I was thinking too about, I pulled some examples, and we'll look at some examples of bios and have David kind of break them down here in a minute. But what about humor?
Whenever possible.
Whenever possible.
I think, yeah. Even in, yes, question?
Well, I do have a question. I tend to write different bios for different genre. Is that, I mean, should you write one bio and stick with that for everything? Or, you know, when I'm talking about a movie that I'm writing, that I focus on one set of experiences that I've had. And when I'm writing about paranormal, I focus on a different set. I'm a psychic.
Have you ever had any spooky experiences, by the way, I'm wondering?
I'm a professional psychic, and I worked at Our Lady of Peace doing medical intuition. And so, yes, I have had a lot of experiences that are not normal for most people. Yes.
But they call it paranormal because it's not normal.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you ever been in an exorcism?
No, I have not.
Well,
I have been in places where I was getting rid of the energies, but not an exorcism.
Wow. So I'd be very interested in talking to you about your experiences, but I'll get your number and see if you want to talk to me. But yes, tailor the bio to make it fit.
Okay.
You gotta, what is it called? The elevator speech. You got a limited window and it's closing fast whenever you're approaching someone trying to get them to buy something from you. So yeah, do not be in any bio you write. If you do just one, don't let it be generic in any way.
Well, yeah.
Anybody else have questions about bios? I think this is a good time to open it up for a little bit.
I'm going to piggyback off of Lorena, because I was thinking, okay, I tailored my bio when I was talking to you guys, the audience. You all are Kentuckians or have lived in Kentucky, and so have I. And this is one way we can connect, right? Like that. So how much do you consider the audience? Do you target it for a particular audience? Like I said, it's kind of like another same kind of Lorena's question, but phrased a different way. Thank you.
Well, the footers for your basic story should be pretty much the same from one to another, one tailored bio to another, depending on your audience. So that of course there'll be commonalities because you're it. But yeah, I think it just makes sense to. What you're looking for is someone to pique someone's interest with whatever it is you are, you know. Mm-hmm. If you have a room in your house that's full of terrariums of scorpions and black mambas, you should put that in every one of your bios. But if they're lesser things, then save those for it's all a judgment call. Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, Rhonda. Like if you're writing something that's Kentucky focused, you're going to highlight your Kentucky background. If you're writing for a New England publication, you are going to highlight that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I used to date Ichabod Crane, you might say.
One thing that I've used in some things that I've slept with more politicians than most people have ever met. So
I remember you told me that about yourself.
But that's just, it's just humor to get your attention. And a lot of times my elevator speech would be, well, your liver wants to tell you that you need to do a detox. What can I say?
It's funny. Yeah, you're in a constant battle with your liver, and your liver speaks to you.
Yes.
The liver has to do what you want. I mean, you're in charge, but you're more and more you're listening to your liver. That's very funny. Very clever.
What about Lynn there?
I just wondered if, David, if you'd share an example of a bio that you wrote for someone so we can kind of get an idea of what you mean by digging beneath the surface?
Yes, I will send Mickey 3 bios that she can send you. They're all, what I'm selling is they're all exactly a page long. So no one gets more, no one gets less in a law firm, for example, because they're all, because egos, that sort of thing. So rather than read you one, which is again a page long, I'll send 3 to Mickey and of 2 in 1 minute. How about that?
I think his bio that he gave us was a page long, and that's what showed up on that. So you can get a sense for his writing there too. Go ahead, Lynn. I'm sorry. No.
Oh, she was just agreeing.
Just agreeing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who are you thanking?
You.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. I don't have good manners.
Are there any other questions in the room? We're good here.
Then I'm going to transition and talk a little bit about David's work in video, because I know some of you use video on your personal websites or may have a use for it in the future. So I'm going to ask him a few questions about video, and then we'll look at a few bios and kind of break them down and say what's working and what could be better. So you do a lot of storytelling and video. Your name of your company is BrandFlick, so most of it's video. Why video? Why did you choose that? A journalist, a writer. Why did you go into video?
Fair enough. The Cincinnati Post folded, and it just like so many newspapers have, and the ones that haven't folded are just mighty thin gruel. And so, what am I going to do? I want to keep doing something like this, and then video is just really happening, especially then. And I thought, well, I don't know anything about video. One of you said you have a background in television. I don't know zip about video, except it involves a camera. And but I can hire someone who, if you don't need just a shooter. I knew you needed an editor, and the rest of it I could do myself. So I wanted to be, so I lined up the best shooter in town, I think. Bob.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's also an editor. So that made it's just the two of us for the most of BrandFlick. And what we came to focus on primarily family-owned businesses, because it's a story. People want, I know, what Rumpke is. It's a giant family-owned business. We got Rumpke, and then we focused on, as I say, family businesses and nonprofits, because they're less about next quarter's profits than they are about their mission. And so, as a result, they have better stories to tell. And I honed it, and we came to finally, we represented some great clients at Cincinnati Art Museum, some corporate ones out of town, but Grader's Ice Cream, Cincinnati Children's Hospital, just some really, really good clients. So I was very fortunate. I think I was, I kind of was known because my picture was on a bus, the vagrants sit and pass the day, and that kind of thing.
So if we're doing video, let's say for the introduction of a book, and it's maybe something we're going to put up on TikTok, or I'm not on social media, so I don't know where this stuff is.
Good for you. I'm not either.
But what do you think gets people's attention? You've done a lot of these videos. What do you think grabs attention?
Where's the emotion live? And what happened to the person that, or the story? The Mayfield Institute, Mayfield Clinic, they always want a piece every year for their
They do spine and back stuff here in town.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, brain, the neurosurgery mainly. And they won a piece for their gala fundraiser every year. And so they tell me what it is. They tell me what their story is. And if the story is not good, I say, you really want to do better than this. But I'm looking for what happened to that person and how's that person dealt with it. And especially if they've dealt with it in a noble or gallant or selfless way. Courage in the face of adversity, all those kinds of things that you are drawn to draw everybody.
So would you say we do that for the characters in the book then? Would we focus on the characters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you would be telling the story.
Yeah.
And probably from the beginning, more and more I see in all kinds of writing and video, the key moment is presented right up front. And then there's a flashback or 3 years later or whatever it is. And you probably do that. May do it already, but
right. When you write a synopsis for your book, you're focused on you want to hook right away. And but I think celebrating the character in video, I don't see a lot of authors doing that. Now, again, I'm not on social media, so
say you focus on the character and the story, and that's what people would be buying.
I was reading a book recently. I think it was Sue Grafton about writing mystery, and she was talking about, plots are great, and there are a million plots, but the reason people go back to certain authors is because of the time they spend building the character and the connection that you felt to the character. Like I can remember, if you think about Jack Reacher books, for instance, of which I've read all of them, I couldn't tell you a specific plot. I can remember pieces of it, but you remember everything about Reacher, and that character. So I think that's just a tip as you look at video, to focus on your characters, to make them real.
Yeah, the series now too, and that's what draws me is that guy.
That guy, right? Exactly.
Jeez.
All right, cool. So we've got New York Times and USA Today best-selling author Angie Fox writes sweet, fun, action-packed mysteries. Her characters are clever and fearless. But in real life, Angie is afraid of basements, bees, and going up the stairs when it is dark behind her.
Spiders.
Let's face it, Angie wouldn't last 5 minutes in one of her books. It's doing well. What makes this a good bio?
Well, it tells you quite a bit about her, and she's willing to, I call it self-defecating humor. But she's willing to engage in self-deprecating humor. She makes fun of herself. And I think the focus here is on Angie Fox, and that's okay. That's as it is. That's the thing in the italics that you see at the beginning or somewhere at the end of the story. I really like the things she's afraid of. I think we can get rid of "Let's face it." It doesn't push it further toward me, but she only let's say somebody said you got 42 words here. This is pretty good for 42 words. Yeah,
I liked it too. That's why I pulled it.
I would like to see. I'd like to see another one that drew her to writing. What is it was there some kind of a mystery in her life, or was her life just so bland that she craved mystery, or was she so full of fear of basements, bees, and going upstairs? How can you be afraid of going? I guess you could fall. Joe Biden, I suppose, should be afraid of going upstairs.
I think what makes this one good is it's very you said it piques your curiosity. So first of all, I'm curious about how scary her books really are. And I'm also drawn to the humanity of her, that she's so, like you said, the self-deprecating, that she's honest about herself.
Yeah. And then you don't see sweet fun. You see action-packed mysteries. That wouldn't work with sweet fun mysteries, and it wouldn't work with action-packed, but the combination of those three adjectives
It's good.
yeah. Takes you to different places.
Let's go to the next one, if I can. Yeah, here we go. Eric Carle invited writing, the airplane, and the internet. He was also the first person. He's flown to Mars and back in one day and was enthusiastically greeted by Martians, very strange beings, he reported on his return. He's written 1,000 highly regarded books. A team of experts is presently attempting to grasp their meaning. It might take a century, said the chief expert. Carl is also a great teller of stories, but not all of them are true. For instance, those in this book.
It's pretty good. But he's probably opening himself up to a lawsuit from Al Gore Jr.
Right, that's right.
But he's using that hyperbole. Right away, you know, he invented writing. No, he didn't. But then you're kind of pulled into the joke. Oh, he's tricked me. And then you kind of follow along, and he pulls you along. He does a nice job of pulling you along.
Mm-hmm.
He's flown to Mars.
In one day.
Yeah, how do you do that? I flew to the sun once, but I decided not to land.
Is this helpful for everybody?
Is it? Say that again.
Yes.
Helpful. That's what I asked. All right.
Did you like this one?
I liked this.
Of course
one.
you did.
Yeah, and it reminded me. I bought more in a book this week, a biography, and I can't remember who it was from, but the critique in the New York Times said, "Oh, this guy has an ego the size of Buenos Aires. I don't believe a single thing in this book, but you'll love it." So it was the same kind of thing.
The same guy playing. So something like the conversation with your liver, and
Yeah.
I like that a lot. It's clever. Well, you're always struggling for what hasn't anyone ever heard before.
Right. You want to stand out.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the next one. Jonathan Mayberry is a New York Times bestseller, 5-time Bram Stoker Award winner, anthology editor, comic book writer, executive producer, magazine feature writer, playwright, and writing teacher lecturer. He's the editor of Weird Tales magazine and president of the International Association of Media Tie-in Writers. He's the recipient of the Inkpot Award, 3 Scribe Awards, and was named one of today's top 10 horror writers. His books have been sold in more than 30 countries. He writes in several genres, including horror, thriller, science fiction, epic fantasy, and mystery. He writes for adults, middle grade, and young adult.
He does everything for everybody.
What's wrong with this one?
Well, it reminds me of the idea of the award-winning journalist. Surely you're more than the sum of your awards and professional recognitions. A Hollywood star, a star in the Hollywood the walk. It's I think last I heard $10,000. Nobody you buy that.
You buy it.
Yeah, and it's like that's what this is. This guy is really caught up in himself. He's in himself, not saying anything. That he sold books to more than 30 countries. Well, you can do that if you expense it. But yeah, he's put me to sleep. Jonathan,
Mawberry, sorry.
Yeah.
I read a lot of these types, especially in business, but also I see them with authors. I'm sure you guys have too. Just a snooze.
Yeah.
All right, let's
go. Yeah, I'm sure he's much more interesting than this. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. I put this one in just for contrast, so the rest of them will be more interesting.
That's okay.
The next one is, I'll start with a confession. I can't remember the first romance novel I read or when I read it, but I do know that I had a stash of Harlequins when I was in middle school, and I hid said books between the covers of my Menudo magazines. If you're not familiar with the Puerto Rican boy band Menudo, picture a young Ricky Martin in spandex. Lots.
And that's a shot at Ricky Martin.
Before embarking on a writing career, I practiced media law in the nation's capital. Now that I no longer brave the treacherous commute to DC, I have ample time to hone my craft and plot stories about imperfect characters finding their perfect match. Okay, I'm going to be real. I wear sweatpants most days and spend far too much time on social media. I was mixed on this one.
Yeah, me too. A little bit too much about her. And I'd like to know more about what she tries to do in her writing. Or like the guy who flew to Mars and invented the internet. Gosh, there was a lot of wit in that. And there's some in this. She'll start with a confession. But it's not, but who cares? That she goes to tell you about her confession. Shocking.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not much. It's really, if you're going to tease someone like that, you better deliver, don't you think? And, but she did have a stash of Harlequins. Did she ever murder anyone? Did she ever date? Who would it be? Fabio? I don't know.
Yeah, I was mixed on this one. At first I really liked the beginning, but then I was like, it kind of labored on too long.
That's right. That's it.
Okay.
Young Martin. And then why take a shot at poor Ricky Martin? Lots of Spanish, like a big fat ass. That's not fair.
South African writer and coffee addict Bailey Higgins lives in the Free State with hubby and best friend Brendan and loves nothing more than lazing on the couch with pizza and a bad horror movie. Her unhealthy obsession with the end of the world has led to numerous books on the subject and a secret bunker only she knows the location of.
Bailey's trying to be different. I think coffee addict, who cares? Loves pizza. Well, okay. She doesn't sound like she really generate a lot of interesting stories. She's trying to be fun, and it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone's trying to be something, you really want to do it, like our inventor of the internet. That guy. That was a great one. Very clever guy.
What does everybody else think about this one? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I think it's not that interesting to me.
I'm sure
Gloria doesn't like it. No one's impressed.
Everyone's impressed.
Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah. Something might have happened to her. She might have escaped a lion in South Africa or something. And she could have, or that's where black mambas are, South Africa.
That's true.
She might have had some kind of, but I don't knows nothing more than she loves nothing more than lazing on the couch with pizza and a bad horror. And she's not reaching very hard in her own life. I'm not convinced she's doing much as a writer.
Well, I can't figure out what she's writing, really. I mean, are they dystopian? Are they end of the world books? Are they end times books? I mean, there are certain nuances between all those three. So I can't figure it out if I read these books or not.
Mm-hmm.
Her unhealthy obsession with the, what is it?
End of the world.
End of the world.
Yeah.
That's what she writes about, the end of the world, dystopian, probably fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced. What qualifies her to do that? I don't know.
All right. Let's go to
What do you think of it?
I mean, I liked her unhealthy obsession with the end of the world has led to numerous books on the subject and a secret bunker only she knows the location.
I like that too. That's the best part.
The front of it made me think she's really young. It just made me think millennial. I'm sorry to say that. But
yeah, she's not drawing from a deep well.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Writer. All right, let's go to the next one.
I went to this doctor for the first time yesterday, and he says, "How you doing?" I said, "Much better than I deserve." And he says, "Oh, I guess you listen to Dave Ramsey." And that bothers me yes, okay, I did. Then he asked me, "Well, how's the world treating you?" And I said, "Like a baby treats a diaper." And then he said, "Norm from Cheers." He got all my references.
All right.
You don't want, if you steal something, you don't want people to know you're stealing it.
Better be obscure.
But it's okay to steal.
All right. The next one, Andy Weir built a 2-decade career as a software engineer until the success of his first published novel, The Martian, allowed him to live out his dream of writing full time. He's a lifelong space nerd and a devoted hobbyist of such subjects as relativistic physics, orbital mechanics, and the history of manned spaceflight. He also mixes a mean cocktail. He lives in California.
Not too bad. I mean, it's very straightforward. I don't care that he mixes a mean cocktail. There's got to be something else about him. Maybe he's Dialogues with My Liver. That'd be the title of it.
Lorena, you really made a hit with that.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Right.
What'd you think?
I like this, but I knew his background, so I had some awareness of Andy Weir. He wrote The Martian, which was a big movie, but before that was a really good book. And I think he do it in installments on the internet, like a chapter at a time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had a full-time job, and he was writing this just freaking amazing book. And,
Yeah.
you know, he is definitely a space nerd. I mean, I would say but yeah, maybe you need to know a little bit about him. If you didn't know who he was or anything about him, this might be like,
But I like that it is straightforward, a 2-decade career doing this. And, you know, that's the sweep of his life there in a sentence anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then these interests contribute to why I can do this, why you can reason to believe, you know, why you can believe I can do this. And then the mean cocktail, I just don't care. There's got to be something else, a little personal aside that's better than that.
I'll tell you, Gloria, I thought of you when I read this one, and your background as a nurse and a doctor, and many of the other things you've done. I think this is an interesting template to consider.
Yeah.
But
The sweep of your life, and
you too, Lorena, actually, all the stuff you've done. Yeah.
And the problem for me is that
Lynn just said she likes, he also mixes a mean cocktail.
De gustibus non est disputandum.
What were you saying, Lorena?
well, just that it's I can't write very much about what I've done because I've done a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I ask about the writing different bios for different genres, because it makes more sense to add the fact that I was raised I grew up in hotels and television and the stage when I'm writing about a bio for the movies. But when I'm writing a bio for the psychic stuff, then I mention more stuff about my psychic experiences.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the whole thing is that there's too much,
Oh, for you, well, you have a lot. Just send a sampler. Yeah, you don't have to mention everything, and you shouldn't.
No.
I never mentioned my Congressional Medal of Honor, but we've known each other a long time.
I have a couple. I picked 2 from debut authors for those of us who haven't written anything.
That's not true of you.
Alex Ross, music critic for The New Yorker, is the recipient of numerous awards for his work, including 2 Deems Taylor Awards for music criticism, something else from the American Academy in Berlin, and something else from the Banff Center, and a letter of distinction from the American Music Center for significant contributions to the field of contemporary music. The Rest is Noise is his first book. I like this one because I think it really credentials him on the topic.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great title.
The Rest is I agree. Yeah. Because you kind of know what you're getting.
Yeah. And he has somewhat of an authority on what is noise and what it is not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who Holtzbrink is, but it must be something, and it's in Berlin.
If I was editing this, I might cut the number of it's a little too much of a laundry list.
Yeah.
I might focus on the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just ended up including 2 ASCAP Deems Taylor Awards for criticism. That's enough. Because none of unless if it was a
distinction from
okay, but if it was like the Nobel, or
right.
Pulitzer or something that everybody knows.
Right. Yeah. So it was a little too much of a laundry list.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. Lucy grew up in rural Pennsylvania with a lot of time on her hands and a big imagination. She was the oldest of 3 in a literary household. Dinners were often spent in silence while family members had their noses buried in books. The passion for writing took hold at 5 when she taught her brother to write his name on the bathroom door.
We like that.
I thought this
That
was
last line.
You know, in my columns, not great or anything, but I always refer to people first time with the first and last name, ever after that with just the first name, because it's just warmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that we don't, you can look on the cover to see her last name.
That's
But
true.
Lucy draws you in. Oh, she's a friend of mine, kind of like.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very familiar at first. So maybe not putting your whole name.
Yeah.
Because they'll see it on the book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Cool.
It's about 12:30. And so if you guys have questions for David, we can certainly have him answer more of that about bios or videos.
And again, if you think I can be helpful to you with that,
You're totally
I'm glad to. Okay, cool. And then and I'll be sending Mickey 3 larger bios I've written for my personal branding story stuff. But yeah, any questions? How could you have any questions? I think we covered everything. There's nothing left to ask. Is there?
I do have a question. Are these about the right length?
Your publisher will tell you that. Yes, they are. If you're submitting a manuscript, but by then, do you all have agents?
No, I used to, but
You pissed her off.
she was a dud. No, I fired her ass.
You flayed her ass?
Fired her ass.
Yeah. Would you fillet it then after you fired?
Does Lynn have an agent, Lynn Slaughter? I'm just curious.
Lynn, do you? Not anymore. She fired her ass. Oh, wait a minute. No, she didn't.
She fired her liver.
What is the role? Do you have an agent?
I did, yeah, a couple times, but I don't know. No.
Do you think they're
Yes, they're very important.
okay?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they can get you indoors when publishers get heaps of envelopes every day and they can't read them. And if they recognize, they know the agents.
Mm-hmm.
And if they figure, if the agent's not going to waste my time, because if he does or she does, I won't.
I'll quit opening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, best to have an agent, but not necessary. And yeah, you're hearing more and more about people who publish, self-publish.
You have a lot of self-publishing.
Yeah, and then someone sees it that's a publisher and picks it up. So whatever you can do, it doesn't mean if you self-publish, it doesn't mean you can't have an agent. You could, I guess you knew that.
Any questions here? We're all good in the room.
All right.
We appreciate your presentation, but go ahead. There may be others on the call. All right.
I was just going to say, we'll send along those examples and I'll share my bio with you guys when David gets done writing it.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to.
Yeah, thank you.